Hi everyone, Paul from the Data Storytellers here. Today I'm here with Juca Tornovsky, who's the Senior Director of Analytics Products globally for AB InBev. Great to have you with us, Juca.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, and I'm really excited for the conversation. You know, I know you've spoken with our co-founder Laszlo. Really excited to get into some of these topics a little bit deeper. Just to start with, tell us a little bit about yourself, your role at AB InBev, how that's progressed over the last, say, 7 years or so.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually with AB InBev exactly for 7 years now. So, but it has changed a lot. Like I can tell that this is kind of a constant in this company is that nothing is constant. So a lot of change, which makes it really exciting for those who like new challenges and opportunities every single day. So that's a great part of it. So I joined ABI 7 years ago in Brazil. Actually, I'm Brazilian, as you probably can tell. And I joined a unit called ZX Ventures, was a innovation kind of division within the company, and it was responsible for trying to experiment new revenue streams for the whole company, and among like really things that go pretty beyond the beer, right? So, and not only talking about the other types of beverage, which was also the case, but also channels, like for instance, e-commerce. Like I was specifically joining a company for the e-commerce area. My background has been entirely in software development and analytics. So this was something pretty new for me. But I was lured into the company to create the very first in-house software development team for AB InBev, because we were venturing into digital spaces, and we needed, to own the intellectual property of the things that we were building, and I was there exactly to create that. And then we created several e-commerce initiatives. One of them is now, for instance, Zé Delivery, which is one of our main direct-to-consumer platforms, is operating like millions and millions of orders every month. Very exciting, like, direct channel with the consumers and collecting orders, not only our products, but also marketplace products. So this is a big, huge, and I was honored to have developed actually the first MVP and deploy the very first version of it myself. So that was one of the pieces of things that I did in Brazil. Then I moved to US for the global e-commerce organization, started to do with different things, and finally, found my one of my passions back, which is analytics. Something I've been doing like for probably some 20 years now, also with my background in consulting. And I started developing the analytics and measurements and all sorts of experiments for ZX. And finally, about a year ago, I moved from ZX to the mothership of ABI, which is the core, and starting working now with all the global operations. My role particularly is to scale up the most promising and successful analytics products that we can have, right? So, of course, there are dozens and dozens of opportunities, several use cases to be addressed in the company, things that we can do with analytics. Some of them have a real huge potential for scale. We need to put them in every single operation of ours to monetize it. And my role is exactly to create, the right ways of working, methods, technology, the right teams operating in an agile way, so that we can really capture this whole potential and move forward for the long term.
Excellent. And you're working on a bunch of stuff you mentioned. What are you most excited about that you're working on at the moment?
Well, I'm very passionate by organizational design. So I think that, of course, it has to be towards doing something. So I think the subject is advanced analytics. We're entirely dedicated to advanced analytics in this division that I'm in. And so we do things like, measuring and optimizing the revenue from marketing initiatives, how you get very like, uncoordinated signals from campaigns, impressions, and our revenue that we generate to try to create correlations with it and optimize the overarching marketing spend. This is one of them. We have a huge now over the last few years, the whole company started to digitalize a lot, right? And this is a amazing play field for us. So for instance, one of the platforms that the product created over the last years was one called Bees, which is a B2B platform that now it's been the main channel for order and relationship with our customers. And this produces this great play field for analytics, right? So when they're putting orders now, we have the opportunity to influence those orders with algorithms for product recommendation, for promotion optimization, price optimization, credit leasing, optimized advanced logistics options. So there are several things that we can do within this platform. And we, in the analytics teams, we can also contribute to that by creating algorithms to feed, to kind of put additional intelligence in each of those areas, right? We have opportunities in the logistics, like how we deliver beer to our customers, best routes, best timings, how we do cross-shipping of products across our CDs so that we can optimize the inventory for minimizing stockouts, maximizing product availability. So these are also algorithms that we build. So there are a lot of exciting things. And what I'm particularly excited about is that for us to tackle all these opportunities, we have to be organized in the right way, right? So I'm very passionate about the methods, the team that we put together, the profiles, the people. We are extremely people-driven organization. So how we can have the right profiles to be able to deliver with agility, but also have stable operations, but also have, scalable tools and scalable software to work with. So all those things put together is kind of my role in this organization, something that excites me a lot.
That's brilliant. I really like talking about organizing in the right way. There's plenty of avenues we can go down here. We can talk about technology and the platform side. We can talk about the process side. What I kind of want to lead us down is the people side. What are some of your thoughts on, let's say, how do you see the data analytics world today? What do you think about data functions in big companies and the general progress of data-driven business transformation in the corporate world?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that over the last years, I'm not an academic on the topic, although I like to exchange information with my peers in the industry, go to some conferences and see what's out there. So I think that there has been like a moment in time a few years ago. As I said, I started with data analytics like probably some 20 years ago, but like advanced analytics was a big attempt, but really didn't lead to much thing like in the early 2000s. So there was a lot of data management, data visualization, so those kind of things. That's what I worked most in my career. But over the recent years, of course, advanced analytics started to bloom. And the first question was that about what can be done with this. I think that a lot of conferences that I've gone to, people were like, okay, you can do this, you can do that, you can, these are the potential, this is the potential of it. And so people, got super excited and invested tons of money until the point that I think people started to question, to say, hey, okay, we kind of know what can be done, but exactly why should we be doing this, right? So what is the actual value that we're getting from these initiatives? And that's something that I still see until today. I think that a lot of companies are struggling nowadays exactly to measure the impact and the value of analytics, which is not necessarily easy, right? Some of the things are pretty obvious when you're talking about like, order influence, right? So you can influence in the orders, like it's a little bit easier to measure uplift, although you still need to do it the right way. But when you're talking about like things like, for instance, we have people management initiatives that are benefited by analytics here. So our people performance appraisal processes here, they get inputs from algorithms that our team generates, like recommendations, like, okay, based on the data points that I have from this person, I think you should evaluate this person as a high potential, as a mover or something like that, right? So how do you actually collect and measure the benefit of it, right? So this is a super, super, super huge challenge. So I think that on the people side, I think one of the greatest challenges now is that to combine within the organization people that can deliver analytics and also people that can understand the business side of it and know how to promote the right change management, which is important because it's not only you're going to have algorithms in the shelf, you need to make sure that they reach the value creation opportunities in the right way, and that people actually consume this, right? So that people are prepared to use it, prepared to understand what's going on there and to effectively make use of those additional insights. Particularly, we have our favorite channels is those that we can fully automatize, right? For instance, when we are talking about inventory redeployment, right? Ideally, those things should be machine to machine so that there should be very little human factors in between. But we still need to deal with someone to approve those movements, somebody to help those things to evolve, right? So the human factor there in terms of educating, evolving the literacy of our business users, and also within our team, having people that are capable of communicating really well how to achieve the maximum value out of those analytics solutions. This is super, super key.
Interesting. And actually, I imagine an organization that is the size of AB InBev it's really, not only is it hard to create the value, to get value creative projects and to track the KPIs on that. How do you go about, let's say, fighting for that real estate with senior leaders to get projects moving forward, especially from like I know your role is analytics products, so that maybe it'd be useful to talk about it from that perspective.
Yeah, if I understand right, I mean, how we are measuring ourselves, right? This is your question. Yeah. So my peers here in this organization. So as I said, I'm responsible for scaling the analytics. So kind of, I have a lot of engineering work to be done, and I'm happy to count with both my leadership and my peers that they are brilliant people working in this change management aspects. And so they develop an incredible model to properly measure value across the initiatives, align this with the organization, and to a point in which we can proudly claim today that we can measure bottom line impact of most of our analytics solutions, right? So we're talking about really like dollars, right? US dollars in the EBITDA line of our organization, signed off by our finance team. So this is certainly one of the biggest North Stars that we could have, because ultimately this unlocks us the value of the opportunity of having a seat at the table, fighting for the budgets we need, fighting for the investments that we need to keep growing. And then I could say that, I mean, it's both impressive the methods that were created and how they managed to put it through, and also the outcomes of it, because the still, once you measure it, the multiples that you can get from some few analytics solutions are incredible, right? The amount of money you put in development and the amount of money that you can generate out of it, considering a large organization as ours, is really impressive, right? It's a no-brainer.
Awesome. And actually, in a more general context as well, where do you think the biggest opportunities are for ambitious companies and also leaders in analytics today? Is it leveraging these longer term projects that can make this real organizational change, or do you think it's something else?
I'm also a big fan of the idea of portfolios, right? I think that there will be no silver bullet. I think that it's a combination of an experimentation phase that has to be done the right way. By the way, this is something we're still, I'd say, evolving, like on how to put more structure around how we experiment and how we correctly measure how to advance in this experimentation phase to correctly identify what are the solutions that are more promising that we should put forward, and which are the ones that we need to, hold back a little. Maybe the time is not right. Maybe the data is not yet available, or maybe simply there's not a lot of value to be had there in comparison with other opportunities that we have. So I think the experimentation phase is utterly important, right? And from that, yes, I think that there has to be some big bets and some productification, right? So one of the things that I hear more about is that how people get stuck in this project mindset, how you keep things, severely dependent on people, severely dependent on annual budget cycles, so that any small change in the organization can shift things around in terms of if budget's still going to be available for that initiative, or somebody else moves, or there's an attrition, and a lot of great initiatives and value-adding stuff can simply disappear in so soon. So I think that's a big challenge, right? Getting the organizations to understand that they need to invest this for the long term. This is not going to be like something that's going to a fad that's going to come and go, and you will not generate value in like 6 months. You will not have solid results in just a few months. You might have third parties that will come deliver amazing projects. We have great partners that help us along with the journey, but I do believe that having an internal team that can really be the translators and can be really the bastions of value generation for the long term is super key to get this going, to honor the potential that analytics has in a big company.
And that's super interesting. Tons of stuff to go into there. And my first question on the back of that would be, it's very easy to hire an analytics consultant and bring them in-house. They can do some limited things. Same with a solution provider. They might be able to overhaul the whole tech side of things. But actually, when it comes to empowering people, and I think a lot of what you talk about with letting the organization see the long-term context, and use the word experimentation, which I think is key, and actually having the space to experiment and fail, but fail fast, but actually start getting quick wins and doing that kind of stuff. So some people in our community really will struggle with actually having that breathing room, I would say, to be able to see what works and see what doesn't. So What are some of the best practices and common pitfalls you've had in leveraging an experimentation mindset across the business? I imagine, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of this would have come from ZX Ventures, from the Innovation Hub, having that culture already embedded in there. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So I would say that maybe one of the roles that, since I have myself migrated from the ZX organization to the core, one of the principles that once when ZX was created was exactly to contaminate the core with some of the practice that we developed at ZX, right? So this whole notion also of portfolio management is something that I'm borrowing from there a lot, and the stage gating that goes along with it, in a sense that the experimentation has to be well measured, time framed, with great criteria in terms of budget and structure that you're going to put to it, right? It's very tempting to allow people to experiment freely, especially when we are talking about an area which is advanced analytics it's currently still very easy to generate value on it, right? In a sense that there's so many opportunities and there's so many optimizations in any business that almost everything you touch, you can probably generate some benefits, right? The biggest question is whether is this benefit big enough to justify a bigger investment on it? And the second question, which I think is even more critical, is that is this the best investment among the other competing investments that we need to do? Because it's not about making one profitable investment. It's about selecting from those which are the ones that are more profitable. Probably the very long tail will still generate value, but whenever we dedicate attention to it, in a world in which talent for analytics is so scarce, we are forfeiting the opportunity to invest in something that will generate even more results, right? So choosing the right resource allocation framework is super critical for investments because it will ensure that we will be able to pause or kill things that are profitable, but are maybe not as profitable as other things that we can explore, right? So I think that's something definitely that we've learned from ZX. Yes, we're trying to put this together into our whole portfolio management strategy, and then to be able to really prioritize the highest returns investments. This is something really, really key for us.
And I love the way you use the word contaminate the core, because that's a really key mindset. You think of a human body, the last thing you want is a contamination, right, or a virus. But if the human body is unhealthy and it needs to change and grow, then that's actually the only way you can do it. And my next question kind of ties into that, because you mentioned that it's important to have this prioritize and execute approach. What role do you think that data and analytics leaders play in that aspect of the transformation? So are they the guys who are spearheading this change? Are they the guys managing the people? What role do you see them playing?
I'm pretty much talking about the data analytics portfolio, right? But I think also, again, this in this concept of developing best practices and sharing them. I think we have an opportunity here because maybe the footprint of our solutions are a little bit more contained than if you think about a major SAP initiative that goes across everything. It's kind of a one-off. You don't do 100 SAP deployments in the company at the same time. But we do have probably 100 or more initiatives in our analytics portfolio. So I think that we have an experiment area that is rich enough, is diverse enough, both in geography coverage and also in subject matters and also in sizes, that we can hone this idea of portfolio management for IT as a whole, right? So I think that's one of the ways of maybe facing this opportunity, which is to say that we can be a kind of an experimentation field for the method too, right? And see how this goes, and maybe replicate this towards or initially all other technology-related initiatives, and potentially even more potentially things in logistics, things in marketing or whatever, right? Agile, for instance, is a good example, right? So when we started out at ZX, we introduced Agile there. It was people just didn't know much about this in the core. And ever since, we've been seeing Agile spreading throughout the company, partially because people were aware of it, partially because it's spotted, because spotted in other areas of the company. And now Agile has been something very, very valued and adopted each time more in all areas, not only tech, but you see some teams in marketing adopting agile for initiative management, some people in other areas too. So this is very exciting, right? To see how those computing, some that is IT originated methodologies can also generate value for other areas of the companies.
That makes perfect sense. And actually, from your experience, what have you found the best ways for data analytics leaders to gain more influence? Especially, you mentioned the IT methodology there, actually gaining influence in an analytics setting, which is great. How do IT and tech and analytics leaders gain more influence with the business side of things, in your experience?
Yeah, one thing that we did last year, we development project was kind of, we call it the lighthouse, right? Was we tried to put together in that initiative everything that we thought that should be our best practices, right? So we picked like the right zone to work with. It was the Middle America zone, in the sense that they were very receptive to embracing this journey with us. And then we chose relevant subjects. And most important, from the beginning, we put a lot of emphasis on change management. I think change management was really like, has been I don't say undervalued, but probably people understand the needs of it and has been highlighting how important it is, but probably not executed as well, right? And so we actually went many extra miles in making sure that the business would own the initiative and not be stakeholders of the initiative. So I think this is a very, very important thing. So, right, and that has to be manifested in all the small things, like the way the meetings are held, who's presenting the initiative, who's bringing that forward, the cadence and intensity by which the business people participate in the project. They have to be like whole members of the initiative, and not just setting requirements and then turning it back to deal with other stuff and coming back a month later, right? So I think this was super, super key to achieve the right level of transformation, because at the end, the solutions that we developed, they did not fit into the current processes that the business area had. The solutions actually prompted for changes in the processes, right? So the marketing area, they changed several key processes that they had to reorganize around the new opportunities that were being brought in by the algorithms that were being developed, right? I'm not saying that has been 100% transformation, but they did the needed transformations that were needed to incorporate that into the day-to-day. Otherwise, it was going to be an externality and not something that was actually inside their ways of working day in, day out, right? So I think this was key. So getting the business team to be part of the project from the beginning, getting them to fully own the project, and ensuring that there will be sufficient attention to how the business process had to change to accommodate what the value, the benefits that the advanced analytics is bringing, right? With all those things together, now we have a sustainable model to move forward and to fully reap all the benefits of the analytics models that are being put to work.
Awesome. And actually just looking at all of these, that's all great stuff. And what I really want to hear from you, and this is a very, probably quite a hard question, is everyone's talking about, the decade of data, and data-drivenness is kind of like almost a buzzword at this point. But how would you define the term data-drivenness? You mentioned that you have this portfolio approach which has projects and it scales, but when do you go, hey, we're now data-driven, as opposed to we're getting data-driven, or is it more of a scale for you? How does that work within your role in your organization?
I think there are two great examples. One is this that I just mentioned, like for instance, the market team now and the sales teams, they are instead of the ideating and then validating the ideas with mathematical models, they're getting inspiration for their initial strategic meetings from the algorithms, like such as what promotions should we run? Let's see what are the most likely successful promotions from the models. What are the campaigns we should run? Let's see what our models are saying, right? And then discuss on top of that. We cannot never underestimate or ignore the human factor. But I think that human and machine together, this is the future, right? So this is how we can put people to really to get the best of the automation that we can do with mathematical models, and also have the best of the human cognition, right? To interpret that and to shape that to the context in the best way possible. So I think this is one of the way to really ensure that people will be data driven. If you combine those things and you change the processes to go for it. This is one of the ways. The other way is to explore the digitalized aspects of the company to make sure that we have also unobstructed ways to deliver value. For instance, nowadays we have platforms for sales, right? So our B2B platform is one that in which we can automatize a lot of things directly towards the platform. And I won't say removing the human factor for it, but actually both the business areas and the analytics areas working together to embed inside the platform that sort of direct value generation channel, right? So both of them working together to find the right spot, the best way, and the best experience for our customers that benefit from all the business strategy and also all the automations that advanced algorithms can provide, right? And when that happens, it's not that our back office of the organization is data-driven, but actually the whole value chain all the way through the customer is data-driven. I think that will be the most powerful way to think about it.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier talent, which I really want to dive into. Whether you're hiring externally or internally, what are some of the qualities of the leaders you look for? Because it sounds like you're really looking for people who are successful at driving data-driven transformation, which is the dream state where everyone wants to be. What are the kind of the things you look for in these people?
Yeah, it's a pretty much a combination. I think that one of the best thing that we have been doing for the last year is understanding that there will be no one size fits all. We definitely need a strong multidisciplinary team to get this through, right? By the way, that's one of my personal responsibilities, which is to create what we call our specialized guilds, right? So our guilds are, I won't say pools, but actually communities of similar profile talent that will work together to enhance and to elevate that technical specialty to a new level, right? So we have a guild for data engineers, a guild for data scientists, a guild for machine learning engineers and software engineers, a guild for product managers and agile practitioners. So these are the 4 guilds that we are working on. These people have to be very technical. They have to be really passionate by the technology, passionate by their specialty. They want to grow within the specialty in a way that maybe they couldn't when in the past, we've tried to have more hybrid people. People could do some data science, but also had to dig and wrangle data, but they also had to communicate with stakeholders, So this is something that we've been through this stage in our evolutionary process, right? And that's led us to a lot of learning. But at some point, you realize that you will not be able to scale that. A data science, at some point, will not have all the skills or maybe the pleasure to do heavy duty data engineering workloads, right? Why not we collaborate with a team of data engineers to do this together in a squad and acting as a single team, but with specialized roles within it, right? Maybe someone who's a more senior practitioner of data science might not have the right skills to be a full-fledged product owner. So we need a proper product owner, somebody who has the proper knowledge and training to understand the vision, how you drive the vision of a project, how you break it down into backlog, how you measure things, how you solve for roadblocks, and all the things that a full-fledged product owner should have, how to communicate with stakeholders, right? So that's the kind of thing that we've been evolving a lot over the last year, and it's been proven to be very successful, right? So it's a combination. So there's not one thing that we look for. I think if there's one thing that we look for in the company, which is part of our core belief, is that you have to want to dream big and to create like huge impact. Wherever is your activity of choice, one thing that you need to have to work in this company is this. You have to be engaged and committed to build something massive that's going to outlast all of us, right? So my dream here is that the products that we're creating, they're going to still exist in a much more evolved shape 10, 20, 50 years from now. I would like to look back and say, well, those algorithms are still out there, probably much more evolved, but delivering value and helping the business.
And you mentioned communicating with stakeholders there. What kind of skills do you look for? Or let's rephrase it to, we talk a lot about soft skills here. So what are the kind of optimal soft skills for technical leaders to have when they're communicating with key stakeholders?
Yeah. So we are a company of, a lot of our company is around marketing, right? So we're the most valuable beer brands in the world, right? We are the largest beverage beer company in the world. So it's storytelling on brands is in our DNA, right? So it's really an unfair competition that our analysts, that our geeks here, they have to compete in storytelling with our brilliant marketeers here in the company. So, but we try, right? We try to get inspired, and we learn from them about how to communicate in all aspects of the initiative, from purpose, value generation, the business drivers. So we try to translate things as much as possible to business outcomes and not to technical metrics, right? So of course we have our technical metrics in the back back office, but we have to bring forward business metrics like value generation, adoption, satisfaction, NPS. So these kind of things they help a lot in the communication. And also I think that's something that has to be met in the middle, right? I think that no modern knowledge worker or citizen in a company, they can afford not to understand technology and not to understand analytics. I think that, as I said, right, the potential of impact of all that is so big that in all the areas, right? So for instance, at the same time that our people from the marketing team, they're looking on the best way, to communicate with our consumers, generate care for our brands and create the right stories for our brands. They also have an eye and understand what technology can do for them, right? So digital media is there, and it's a huge space for optimization. It's already probably one of the most impactful ways of communicating with our consumers, and it's propelled by technology. So they cannot afford not to understand technology, not to be able also to come to a middle ground and to communicate in a common terms of things like audience generation, segmentations, cluster management. You can go to either side. You can start talking about cluster. You can start talking about attributes, metadata management, and things like that. Or you can start talking about how those things are leveraged by our campaign managers to create targeted campaigns, and also get more immediate feedback from digital channels about how those things are performing so that they can able to optimize. So I think things are blending so much nowadays on the business side that it's very hard not to talk tech in any concept. And it's very hard, and you should never talk tech without also matching this to the business concepts that we need. So you asked me about what is it that we look in these people. Yeah, people have to have, like a kind of a left and right brain side very activated nowadays. So one for keeping us grounded in the technology, but also being able to translate that to the business really, really, really well, and to especially extrapolate. Like I think the opportunities are really very, very far from exhausted, and we need to keep our radar tuned to new opportunities every single day. Every communication we have, every engagement we have with someone who is in the field, in the talking to our customers, talking to our consumers. These people have a lot to teach us, and they can, in a simple comment during a conversation, probably open up something that can be a huge opportunity for us.
And Laszlo and I were just talking about this today for example, with our logo. We designed it so it's about you can't have a process where the left brain is just working on its own, and you need to be grounded, so you can't just have the right brain working on its own. What you need is this harmony, right?
Is that what it is? It's a brain.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Left brain. Oh, amazing.
We have the process side, and then we have our creative side there. And what we find ourselves like the little line down the middle. That's where we sit as the data storytellers.
Awesome. I was not sure. Maybe I was influenced unconsciously by the image.
Yeah, maybe that's why you came on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No. This is brilliant because those sides of the brain can't work individually, right? They need to work in harmony together. You need to be able to have the technical background, for example, to back up what you're saying, but there needs to be a compelling story behind it. That's why you can't just go to a board meeting, show them 200 slides of PowerPoint that has all the best data in the world on it, because it's not going to resonate, right? I mean, when it comes to telling that kind of story, do you have any experience with where it's maybe an example where times didn't go so well, or times where it went really well, and can you pinpoint why that was?
Oh, a lot of times it didn't go so well. I mean, I'm an engineer, right? So for me, delving into the numbers, delving into the architecture, this is, for me, it's exciting, and I probably flare up when I start talking about it. And like, I've seen so many times, like, people are like, okay, like, when is this guy gonna get to the point, right? So I mean, happens, right? It was a long process to get better at it, and storytelling has been a subject of a personal study, like, what's out there, presentation skills and all that. So a lot of times, I mean, more times going wrong than not going wrong. But again, it's curious, because like, if you move in time and the same speech that probably got people to sleep 4 years ago probably would work now, because I think the company evolved a lot, to the point in that if you look the public release earnings calls and the public results released from the company, you will see that over the last years they are talking about technology each time more. So that nowadays, if you look at them, you see that technology is actually one of the pillars of the strategy, right? Digitalization and analytics. So this is now fully, integrated in the strategy of the company. So I think people are opening up more, right, to understand that they need to know what's under the hood a little bit more, so that it can be more powerful too. But still, of course, we have to frame it in a way that it's digestible, that it's many techniques, like an inverted pyramid, or the 6-page memo, or the press release, or whatever. Any technique, we're experimenting with them too, but it's a moving target. That's what I wanted to say. Like, yes, we're trying to go more business-like, but also the business is coming more tech-like, and again, we're mixing up in the middle, and things are changing, and like, as I said, what haven't worked in the past might work now, with a little bit more tech terms, and with the thing people are more comfortable listening about us and relating to it. So it helps to create more repertoire to tell the story, right?
Absolutely. And I also want to nail down, where you see yourself, because data analytics is such a wide field here in 2022. If you had to describe your role to someone, what would you describe yourself as? Would you be like a data champion, a product analytics champion, a data evangelist, and a change agent? How would you contextualize your role to others?
That's a funny one. Yeah. I remember that when I joined ZX, and again, like, this was 7 years ago, and we had some, besides the e-commerce development that was doing, also we had we had to create some analytics throughputs too. And the initial phases of it, people were calling everyone like data ninjas. So this was the term, because like, people didn't understand exactly what goes within a data and analytics team, right? So the difference between someone who is the data engineer, data management piece, the data science piece, the visualization. So these are actually very different profiles of people, of preferences, of ways of working, thinking, tools, and everything. So that's funny when you said it, because like, I think that now it's more clear, the same way that tech went through all, like, you had everyone was developed in the past. Now you have backend, front end, and UI, UX specialists, and so on and so forth. So I think this level of specialization is helping people understand better what people do. And as for me, I mean, I think I my favorite, I would say, maybe if I had to condense everything into a similar name, I think I'm a product person. I like to think myself as someone who brings things together and package them in a way that they can last, right? So I think that's the essence of a product, instead of just managing initiatives and services and things that are more volatile. I like to think of myself as someone who maybe has this engineer background. Like, I like to build the buildings and see them lasting there for many years, and not just like something that can pass.
Absolutely. And look, it's been a great episode, Juca. Just the last couple of questions. You mentioned you've been working in this space for like 20 odd years now. You said you've been working in the space for about 20 years now. So what made you fall in love with data analytics? What do you love most about your job?
Well, that's an easy one, because I mean, I think shortly after the college, I coming from a very heavy engineering college, and I know probably getting saturated with the technical side of it. I was really intrigued about the potential that business decisions could have in actually propelling companies, right? I remember that as a consultant, I was a process engineer. I was building equipment, designing equipment for refineries and big petrochemical industries. And I was like, okay, like we're searching for small percentage of improvements in this process here, but then somebody in marketing can come up with some brilliant idea and create like huge advances in the company, like groundbreaking double-digit growth. I was like, wow, that's power in understanding business, understanding like strategy, understanding those things. So I went to MBA and additional studies in business. And what I really fell in love with analytics was that I think that data, more specific data, is like the representation of business in a mathematical way, right? So if you can really translate the business concepts, and I was for a long time in business intelligence, right? Multidimensional modeling and visualization. When you do that, I was really excited because sometimes after a few conversations, I could understand and represent the model of the company, the business model, in a mathematical way that sometimes was even more precise and elegant that even the people in the business themselves, they had a perception, because you have to be super accurate when you're talking about, how the tables relate to each other, foreign keys, so on and so forth, who's contained in which, like the whole Venn diagrams and all sorts of representations. You start to really understand the business. So I felt like, maybe like the matrix, suddenly you understand everything through the numbers, through the data. And I think that's the perfect blend between engineering, math, and business, right? So that you can really get a really crisp understanding of it, promote changes, suggest improvements, but coming from a very technical foundation.
Except that the difference between real life and the Matrix is that when you're awake in the Matrix, it's not like the post-apocalyptic world and the aliens have taken over. It's analytics awareness, which is great. And Laszlo will love that because it's one of his favorite movies. Last question then. What advice would you give for aspiring leaders in data and analytics?
Whoa, who am I to give an advice to anyone? But I think that the socialization piece of it is something that I should do. Maybe I'm talking to myself. Let me put it that way. Like keep socializing, like exchanging information, best practice. I have had some amazing discussions with peers, external peers this last year. And I think this is a super powerful tool. Like I think that companies are different. There's no like a cookie cutter model for it. But a lot of companies are each on their own doing fantastic things, right? And in different stages of development. So I think that the best thing you can do is to try to learn what they're doing and maybe do your own mashup. I think what we're doing here is this, like our own mashup. Hopefully this will work. As scientists ourselves, we are experimenting. So we always keep an eye on, say, hey, we're putting this together, but let's see if it works, right? So this is going to be an experiment. We're not doing this with a certainty that this is how it's going to go. So learn from all sorts of possible sources, do experiments with a scientific approach and learn from it and see what works best for you. I think that will be my own advice that I'm giving for the others, but maybe also from myself.
Look, Juca, I think you've got some really great experiences, and thanks for coming on the show and sharing that with the community. I think that you do have a pretty authoritative background on this, so but I love the humility. It's a huge part of what we teach, we look at here. So great to have you on the show, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.